Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Well, after the sale of prepaid financial services to an Australian company, Noel and Valerie Moran were not idle for too long. Instead, they started eCOMM Merchant Solutions, which offers an award-winning instant payment option for merchants. Noel joins me on the phone now to discuss this new business. Noel, before we discuss eCOMM Merchant Solutions, provide us with an insight into your own background.
I originally started out working with Permanent TSB, and that was my first move, I guess, into financial services. From PTSB, I went to Allied Irish Bank, and then I went to England after that. About 17 years ago, I moved to the UK, and I worked with probably all of the high street banks in the UK, RBS, Lloyds, Co-op Bank, and that's where I got a good understanding, I guess, of the card product.
And did you see a particular niche in the market that you felt you could fill with eCOMM Merchant Solutions?
If you look at what's happening here in Ireland around merchant services, up until a couple of years ago, really that was an area that's serviced just by the banks here. You have AIB and Bank of Ireland are the main two players, but now there's an opportunity for other players to move into the financial services arena and compete with the banks and offer alternative services to merchants.
So talk to us about the services that eCOMM Merchant Solutions now provides.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different services, I guess. We service small to medium-sized enterprises, small to medium-sized merchants in multiple countries. But as I said, Ireland is one of our main countries. So your normal corner shop, any type of SME merchant, takeaways, bars, restaurants, all of that area. We provide terminals, effectively payment terminals. Two things, payment terminals for face-to-face transactions. And then we also have the ability to provide that same merchant with the ability to take online payments through e-commerce solution.
How else can eCOMM Merchant Solutions be of assistance to SMEs?
Yeah, so the instant payment product is a new product we launched about a year and a half ago. That comes off the back of the terminal. So effectively, if we provide a merchant account to a small to medium-sized business, we also can provide them with effectively a current account. And it's a current account that comes with a corporate business expense card. Every time then there's transactions processed by that merchant on the terminal, we will settle the money into that account real time. So it's instant settlement. And as well as instant settlement, that obviously means the merchant has access to his funds instantly. They don't have to wait a day or 2 days or 3 days to be settled, which is probably the norm with a lot of our competitors. But more importantly, then they can also earn further rebates if they spend value on that card as well. There's another 0.5% they can earn on all spend. So obviously there's a lot of advantages to small to medium-sized business, particularly around cash flow.
Noel, has it been difficult to move clients of core banks over to eCOMM Merchant Solutions?
No, I think merchants are seeing the benefit of it. They can see the benefit. Merchants want to get settled earlier and they want access to that cash earlier. So we've signed up thousands of merchants in Ireland here now, so there certainly hasn't been a resistance. Fintech companies are becoming more and more popular in the financial services space, and merchants are always looking for alternative solutions and alternative providers.
And Noel, how do you see that merchant space evolve over the coming years?
Well, it'll probably get a lot more competitive, I'd imagine, Carl, to be honest about it. It's a competitive space and everyone wants to, or a lot of people want to get into financial services. So it probably will get more competitive. You probably will see more fintechs moving into this space. Although, having said that, Ireland is a pretty small market for this type of product. We have a limited number of merchants and if you look at some other countries in Europe, the opportunity obviously is greater in some other countries. So that's probably one of the drawbacks maybe for large global or multinational companies moving into Ireland. It is a small market and it's very limited. But I think it will still get competitive and there'll be more competitors as we move forward. Financial services and regulation is opening up to allow non-banks to play in many different spaces. So I'm sure we will see more entrants into the market in coming months and years.
And Noel, where do you see opportunities for further innovation within the merchant space?
Well, there's a whole host of changes that regulators have made recently enough, Carl, as in the last 6-12 months. We have open banking, something called open banking is coming into play now, which effectively means that we can give the end user, the cardholder or the customer the ability to pay a merchant, but without going through the card schemes, being Visa and MasterCard. So that definitely opens up a whole host of opportunities for payment providers like ourselves.
I know that eCOMM Merchant Solutions is currently available in Ireland, the UK, Greece and Cyprus. Why did you decide on the Greek and Cypriot markets after Ireland, Noel?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose the honest answer is that we had partners over there we could already work with and we could hit the ground running. So our model is based on working with partners in local environments, partners who probably already have reach locally with merchants or with a large merchant base. So we had a relationship with some partners in Greece and Cyprus, so that was the main reason why we launched there. We're just about to launch in Poland, will be our next market. We launch in Poland at the end of Q1. And there's two or three other countries we're working on. Hopefully we'll launch 3 or 4 new countries before the end of this year.
And apart from the language barrier, what other challenges are you going to face into in Poland?
Yeah, well, you always have every time you move into a new market, of course, the language is one of the main issues, but you also have regulatory changes and regulatory differences in a lot of these countries as well. So, there may be one set of rules that govern the product here in Ireland and a different set in Cyprus, but you'll nearly always have some local rules as well too as you move into each of those countries. So there's always a challenge to understand what you can and you can't do, make sure you're compliant. Everything we do obviously is about being compliant and making sure we meet our regulatory needs and all of that. So it's probably language and local regulation are the two main barriers to entry. But other than that, the product is the product and it works the same throughout Europe. So if you can get those two things right, you have a good chance of succeeding in each of these new territories.
And on barriers to entry, how have you funded your own business to date? And will you be engaging in a funding round to facilitate these expansion plans going forward?
Yeah, so I guess we're in a lucky position in that respect, Carl. We had another company that we sold last year called Prepaid Financial Services. We sold that company last year. So any money that's required to keep eCOMM going or to fund eCOMM has actually come from ourselves personally. We haven't gone out to raise any external capital, and I don't envisage that we will either. We'll fund it ourselves.
And of course, eCOMM Merchant Solutions won the Irish Times Innovation Award for the IT and Fintech category recently. Will you be using this platform to attract a wider client base?
Yeah, well, that goes back to the instant payment product that I was on about. So again, we have launched that in the 4 countries that we're already live in. We'll launch merchant services in Poland and we'll follow up with instant payments then off the back of that a couple of months later. So it's just another value add for the merchant. If we can settle with them sooner, we believe we'll sign up a lot more merchants, and that has proved to be the case. So the same product will definitely be rolled out in other EU countries as we launch across them.
And as you create a reputation as an innovator in this fintech space, do you think that eCOMM Merchant Solutions could become an acquisition target in the future? And are you building this company with that in mind?
Well, listen, the end goal is always, if you can sell it, every business is for sale, Carl, obviously at the right price. We're still relatively small, as I said. We probably have to double the business before we become attractive, I'd say, to potential acquisition partners. But that's something we definitely look at maybe 3-4 years down the line.
And Noel, of course, the business is run by yourself and your wife, Valerie, a husband and wife duo. So what is the key to running a successful business with your partner?
Making sure we work in 2 separate departments for starters. So listen, it's a very busy area. So we go into work and we start working from one end of the day to the other. To be honest, sometimes we mightn't even get to speak to each other. But no, all joking aside, we obviously get on very well. We've worked together for the last 12, 13 years in PFS as well too, and that ended up being very successful. So we get on well, and we have different traits that we bring to the business, and Valerie does some things very, very well that I wouldn't get into at all, to be honest, that I wouldn't be very, very good at. So we complement each other a lot.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Noel Moran from eCOMM Merchant Solutions, and I would like to wish Noel and Valerie every success with their European expansion plans.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.